This is Immigrants Making an Impact, the podcast. Today we are so glad to have Shahd A from the United States to join us on the show. Shahd, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Absolutely. I live in Florida right now. I immigrated to the US when I was a lot younger. I was only 2 years old. My family came when my father was looking to do residency in the United States.
Mm.
And so I have been in the US ever since. We started in Michigan, went to Philadelphia, and then I grew up in Arizona, and currently I'm in Florida.
So you came at a very young age. And how was it like when you came?
Mhm.
I think that you could not think about the word immigration or you didn't see yourself as any other different person than any other one. So how was it like?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you said, I don't think my immigration story in particular wasn't one that was, rooted in this what we tend to see a dramatic escape, if whether it's for refugees or asylum seekers, or even for somebody who left at an early age by their choice, at a later age, sorry, and decided to seek opportunities. For me, I came when I was a lot younger. My family, obviously, they were seeking stability, education, residency, all of that. But the older that I got, the more that I realized, because we used to go back every summer to visit. I'm Syrian, so
Mhm.
I realized a lot of the things that had been missing from our lives, which were this connection to lineage and language and culture, um, that felt very missing as somebody who grew up in this in-between world. I think a lot of immigrants will say that they don't necessarily feel like they belong in either place, but then they feel like they do straddle both cultural lines. Um, so even though the choice was not necessarily mine, choices now is this reclaiming of what my identity is, my cultural roots, and that's kind of where my choice is.
Okay, cool. And so growing up and trying to find your identity and your passion, your purpose, how was it like? Were there challenges? And how have you been able to go through that stage to get to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the most part, for any Muslim with a marked identity or anybody who was part of the Arab community that grew up in the United States during or after 9/11,
Hmm.
that really had a strong impact on our identity for a lot of people. They either felt like they did not want to appear Muslim or Arab, and then for a lot of people, they became a lot stronger in their identity. So I think that was a pretty difficult time for collectively for our community to go through. Um, there was a lot of Islamophobia, there was a lot of racism, but I think it made us a lot more resilient, a lot stronger, and a lot more outspoken about who we are and who we're not. So yeah, I would say that that kind of was where the search for my identity began. I was in middle school, and that's already a pretty difficult age to be. During that time, it's already a pretty sensitive, it's a time where children are trying to find out who they are and become who they are. So, yeah, I think I would say that the search for my identity and then everything that came after began during that time, trying to express this is who we are. This is what my religion teaches. This is, what I've been taught by my family, and trying to, speak that to the world. So
Hmm.
that led me to do my master's in international psychology, my PhD in sociology, with a specific focus on things like cultural identity, cultural trauma, collective trauma, historical wounds, and it was all part of that experience.
And through that process, so trying to find your identity and build on it from there, would you say you have found your identity and how can others learn from you, your foundation and finding yourself and trying to use that to maneuver in this very different world?
I feel like a lot of people, when they go through something difficult or a difficult
Mhm.
experience or a traumatic experience, that is what builds an identity, and that is what either, strengthens, weakens, changes, transforms. I think our identities are always transforming, and we're always learning, and we're always growing, and we're always trying to become better versions of ourselves. So in some ways, I would say my identity's fixed in the way that I look at myself and the things that I hold true and I value, things like religion, things like, my lineage, my culture, my background. But there's always things that are, malleable and changing as we progress, as we experience new things. I know I've changed my worldview about a lot of different things as I've grown older, and I've experienced a lot of different things. So yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so talk about being a lecturer or an instructor. And in this community, we are very particular about growth. So
Mhm.
from the onset, how do you know that you wanted to thrive on this path? And how has the
Mhm.
journey been trying to get to become an instructor and studying sociology and psychology on a very higher level?
Yeah, I mean, again, I felt so I leaned into storytelling. I leaned into education. I felt like pursuing that higher education, it wasn't just for work, but it was a way for me to make sense of my identity. It was a way for me to make sense of my belonging. So when I had gone into these two fields, part of it was an exploration into what it means to belong, what it means to identify with, certain groups. I do a lot of social identity work. A lot of it was storytelling. I really believe in the power of storytelling and community and engagement. And then being able to stand in front of students and teach them about different perspectives and backgrounds is so important because they may not have that experience. They may not come across another instructor that's going to teach them what I teach them or talk to them about things that they may necessarily not have been introduced to. And I think that's really important in this day and age because a lot of us are on social media platforms and follow certain news sites that, become an echo chamber, right? Because we're so narrowed in and focused on a very certain perspective. So I feel like that's been a pretty cool role to step into. It didn't necessarily I feel like I've always been educating, but it didn't become a thing until I started my PhD program, and I'm really grateful for it.
Mhm.
I think it's been a really great opportunity, and it's been really exciting to, like I said, work with students because I believe that the beginning of changing misunderstandings and misconceptions, communication. So I'm able to communicate with a bunch of different students. I'm able to teach them, I'm able to talk to them. And I think that is the first step of changing, what the way the world works, the way people think, the way students operate. So it's been a really meaningful outlet for me. And then through that, like you said, the growth potential. I had founded Blue Meets Blue, which is this ethical clothing line. I started it back when I was in Chicago. So after Arizona was Chicago and then Florida. And it was an opportunity to give refugee women meaningful work and a creative outlet for them to work in their own industry. So I was working with seamstresses that used to sew in their home country.
Mm.
And yeah, and my main concern, it was there was four different goals. I wanted it to be an ethical clothing line. So it was something that empowered the people that worked for Blue Meets Blue. And I specifically wanted to focus on women because statistically, we know that women, when they are feeling like they are taken care of within refugee communities, the family usually does better, the whole family as a unit. So wanted to work with women already in their skill set because a lot of times people coming to a new country, their skill set unfortunately doesn't translate and they'll come with this big background. They used to own a factory. They used to be a doctor in their home country. And unfortunately, that human capital is not recognized. And so they come to the US and they end up doing something that was not what they used to work. They'll either drive an Uber, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it just does their own skill set doesn't translate. And so that becomes very difficult. It adds to the depression, it adds to,
Mm,
feeling like they're not worthy, that they're not being recognized. I wanted to make sure that the working had this background in sewing because it added so much to them. They felt they were very proud of their work. They wanted to prove how skilled they were. And then it served as a form of art therapy, but without calling it art therapy. So, in a way, we would sit down, they would sew. As they were sewing, we'd have really important conversations. They felt like they could open up very easily. And then, the conversations would build. One person would share her story, another person would share her story. And it just felt like a very collective healing space. And finally, I wanted to focus on slow fashion because in an era where everything revolves around fast fashion now and making so many different collections in a year, the environmental impact is awful. The amount of waste is awful. And so, all in all, this company was trying to tackle these three um, issues. And we took a hiatus when I moved here to Florida, in addition to the fact that COVID hit. So we
mm.
were not able to meet up or sit together or have any more of these close contact meetings. So we took about a 4 or 5 year hiatus, and now we are relaunching again in January. So I'm really excited about it.
Amazing. And thank you for the impact that you are making through your work, Blue Meets Blue. Why the name Blue Meets Blue?
So it started when I'm sure you recall, I'm Syrian. Syrian war that started in 2011. By 2013, there were so many refugees that were leaving Syria, and they were all around the world. But the ones that were coming to America, the ones that we were working with, I would sit down, I would talk to them, and a lot of the stories, even though not everybody took a boat when they left the country, but a lot of people that left, unfortunately, had to take a very dangerous journey, and that journey included being on a boat, and the only thing they would see is the blue of the ocean meeting the blue of the sky. And so that's where the name came from, with this hope that it symbolized a journey to freedom.
Amazing stuff. So it symbolizes a journey to freedom. And would you say that the immigrant journey is one
Mm.
that leads to freedom?
I would say that, I mean, for immigrants, a lot of immigrants, when they leave their country, it's in search of either a better life or more opportunity. And so, in some way, yeah, that does lead to freedom. Um, I would say as long as people hold on to their identity and their roots, if they so choose, and are proud of it, and not shed it along the way, because I think a lot of times what happens is people end up being, they go to a new country, they start over, and there becomes this forgetting where you come from or leaving all of that behind. And I think real freedom is being able to embrace your identity and embrace yourself as a whole. So, of course, at some level, you're leaving, you're getting more stability, you're able to provide more for your family, you're able to get opportunities that you may not have had in your home country. There is a freedom in that for sure. But I wouldn't say it's the same level of, freedom as a refugee leaving, a war-torn country, or leaving, as the bombs are falling. Those are two very different experiences.
Okay, thank you for your insight. Could you share with us, so if there is a young immigrant watching and they
Mm,
have a lot of challenges concerning the narrative about
mhm,
immigrants at this point in the media, what advice would you give to them?
mm. I would say don't let it get you down. The most important thing is conversation. I think taking the opportunity to meet people and chat with them and getting to know them and allowing them to know who you are. So whether that's your neighbors, whether that's somebody standing in front of you at the grocery line, I think it's really important to have these conversations because although what we hear on the news can sometimes be frightening, and there is a lot of racism that we do hear about on the news, the reality is generally people are really good. And it's such a missed opportunity to live from a place of fear. I think embracing who you are and then being very proud of it and vocal will you'll exude that energy to others. And so when you meet them and you have these conversations, people will begin to learn. I mean, I know when the civil war started in Syria, a lot of people didn't know much about Syria or anything about Syria. And now that Syria became free a couple months ago, the dictator fell and all of that stuff. There have been so many people traveling to Syria that are not Syrian, so excited to learn about the culture and learn about the community because they met Syrian refugees that came, because they've heard so much, because they've learned a lot
Mm,
about the Syrian history. And it's a very, very rich culture. And so for all the people that have gone and that have visited, that's been really amazing to see because I don't think that would have happened had it not been on the news as much as it was.
mm.
Had they not had the experience to speak with, Syrian neighbors or new Syrian friends. So I would say just start that conversation and don't worry about what is happening.
Absolutely. And let's talk about what is labeled the minority. So immigrants are the minority, and also Muslim women, and
Mhm.
also Muslim women who wear their beautiful scarf. So tell us
Mhm.
about embracing your identity and who you are and how important that is.
Um, yeah, so I clearly have a marked identity, right? I do wear the headscarf. And so when I'm out and about, people automatically know that I'm Muslim. It's not something that if I didn't wear a headscarf, it would be very easy to blend in, right? It wouldn't be this, people would not know me from the next person. And so that is something that I choose. It's part of my faith, and I'm very proud to wear it. I think it's very sad that the media has distorted it. There has been a very intentional attack on Muslim women and wearing the scarf in Hollywood, in movies, dating back all the way to the 1950s. And there's documentaries that have come out specifically about this topic, about, the rise of Islamophobia very much with, the movies and the shows and stuff that we see on TV. And it's really unfortunate, especially in a country where you're supposed to be free to do whatever you want, right? You're free to not wear it, you're free to wear it. And so this double standard and hypocrisy of, oh, and then this narrative that the people kept pushing, if she's wearing it, she's oppressed, is also very unfortunate. And so again, part of a lot of the work that I do is this communication, is this clearing up misunderstandings in a sense that when people do talk to me or I have conversations with people, it's very enlightening. I think like people are really surprised. I remember one time a lady stopped me in the bathroom, and I don't even remember where we were. I think it was in like Disney World or something. And I was in a public bathroom and she's like, "You're wearing jeans." And I was like, "Yes." She's like, "I didn't know Muslim women that wear headscarves are allowed to wear jeans." And I was like, "Where did you hear this?" Like, why? So it's just unfortunate. Like there's just sometimes just when you're out and about, people look at you and they're like, "Oh wow, like you look normal." So it's just an unfortunate situation. And there's a part of me that's proud to represent, and then there's a part of me that sometimes gets exhausted, right? Sometimes you just want to be human and you
Mhm.
just want to go to with your kids to Disney World and not be stopped and asked why you're wearing jeans and have to explain your religion over, washing your hands at the sink in the bathroom. So it's things like that. But I think absolutely it's made me stronger. It's made me resilient. It's made me, um, I think, in a way, a lot more attached to my identity because now I'm like, all right, now I have to defend it. I think if I wasn't wearing a headscarf and people didn't necessarily, like I said, know me from the next person, it's not something that I would feel so attached to, so part of my identity. No, this isn't a part of my identity that at any moment I could be stopped and asked a question. At any moment I could, encounter racism. At any moment, it's an opportunity to teach someone that, oh, look, we're normal people. So it's definitely a source of strength.
Amazing. There's so much we can learn from you, Shahad. I'd also love to share this experience. I went with my daughter to the supermarket and
Mhm.
it was just a normal routine. And we met this Muslim lady who had her outfit. I don't know the right name for it,
Mm,
but it covered everything except her eyes. So
mm,
she was behind us, so I picked a card, the grocery card, and I gave her one, and then I also took mine. So as we were going, you know how little kids are, she was, very curious and trying to talk to the lady and said my children most of the time say hello to strangers. And then
mm.
so the lady lifted her scarf and said,
Ah,
"Hello, have a
like
look.
peekaboo.
Have a look. I'm here. How are you?" And we had that chat. So, at the end of the day, I was just thinking about it, and I said, we just have to be kind, and everybody, we are just the same people, with different backgrounds. But at the end of the day, we are just the same. So we have
100%.
to show love, just show love. So yeah, so thank you for your work and being a lecturer and how you are able to use communication to speak to people and tell them that it's fine and how they can build on resilience and not giving up and pushing forward to get to where they are. So it's amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. Please tell us about your book.
It's a kid's book about humanitarianism. It's part of a larger collection. I don't know if you've heard of this company. It's called A Kid's Book About. And so they started out after George Floyd, the founder, his name is Jelani Memory, and he wrote a kid's book about racism. And then after that, somebody wrote a kid's book about systemic racism. And since then, he's been in touch with people from different industries that will write a book depending on what it is that they do. So I did a kid's book about humanitarianism. There are so many other kids' books. There's a kid's book about courage, a kid's book about bullying, divorce, war, like all kinds of topics. So the point of these books is it's never too early to have an important conversation with your children. And so it's supposed to be a read along with your child. So if you're not knowing how to have this conversation with your child, this book serves as this anchor. It
Mm,
serves as a guide so that you could read it with your child, explain difficult concepts, and have these difficult conversations, but in a way that makes sense. There are no pictures in these books. They're all just, but they're very fun. Like the way they're written, okay, I forgot that it's blurry. The way that they're written is like it's just very fun to read it with kids.
ah,
Yeah, it's like the font, the way that they used like colors and made the font bigger and smaller, and so it's fun as a book. But the point was, we don't need to put pictures just because the audience is children. They can understand. So it's this push for adults to have important conversation with their children.
phenomenal. Shad, it's amazing talking to you. So what legacy do you hope to leave with your work?
I think the greatest thing that I would like to pass on to my children, I would say my children are my legacy. I have three kids. And so whether it's writing these books or teaching or working with refugees, I lean into this understanding that empathy is what connects us as human beings. So that's what my work is all about.
What would you do today to make tomorrow better?
That's a really interesting question. A quote that they say, if you every single day you become better by 1%, by the end of the year, you're better by whatever. I think just working on myself in a constant form of, reevaluating. We're all human. We all do it with empathy, even being empathetic to your own self and kind to your own self and working on yourself every day, and will make you a better person to everyone around you. So
Excellent. And what important skills do you think have been the most critical in your success?
Kindness and empathy, always, always. I know there was a study somewhere that I read about who people would rather hire, people that are kind or people that are really incredible at what they do. And 8 times out of 10, people chose individuals that were stronger in emotional intelligence. When I answered the question about legacy that I'd leave for my children, that is the one thing that I always tell them. If you're not a kind person, if you're not a good person, no one's going to want to be around you. No one's going to want to be your friend. No one's going to want to hire you. No one's going to want to work with you. And I believe that a lot of your success comes from your emotional intelligence, from being able to empathize with other people, from being able to see human beings for what they are. They're human beings just like yourself. Like you said, we're all, at the end of the day, we're all the same and we're all on this journey together. So I would say the greatest thing that I lean into always is just my ability, and I'm really blessed with that and fortunate to empathize with other people.
Thank you so much. As we are wrapping up, it's time to invite our community to come and support you. Is there anything you are doing that you want us to know about?
Yeah, absolutely. So that company that I was telling you about earlier, everyone to follow along this journey on Instagram, just Blue Meets Blue. And I have that upcoming book that I will announce on as well. So about refugee children called From Here to There. So that would be the best place to connect.
Cool. And where can we get your children's book as well?
Online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's called A Kid's Book About Humanitarianism. Or from the website, A Kid's Book About.
Okay. Thank you so much. And finally, please complete this sentence.
Immigrants are the ink of unwritten histories.
Thank you so much, Shahd, for coming on the show. We
You're
are so
welcome.
blessed to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful